Hello YouTube, it's CM Maritime History here back in with another video, and tonight I'm talking about the SS Arctic. Let's start with some background. The first shipping line to begin regular transatlantic steamer services was the British-backed Cunard Line, which began operating on July 4, 1840, with the departure from Liverpool of RMS Britannia bound for Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Boston, Massachusetts. As the principal transatlantic mail carrier, the Cunard Line received subsidies from the British government and from the United States Post Office Department. Many Americans, however, thought that an American line should benefit from these subsidies. Thus, in 1845, the United States Postmaster General asked ship owners to tender for the right to operate a subsidized passenger and mail service between the United States and Europe. The successful bidder, announced on March 3, 1847, was Edward Knight Collins. On the basis of the mail contract, Collins founded in New York and Liverpool the United States Mail Steamship Company, familiarly known as the Collins Line, and began an ambitious steamship construction program. The William H. Brown and the Jacob Bell shipyards were each contracted to build two large wooden paddle steamers for use by Collins on a regular twice-monthly transatlantic mail service. The Collins Line would receive an annual subsidy, initially of $385,000 a year from the U.S. government. Part of the government's interest in the project lay in the potential of these ships for use in times of war. They were constructed in a manner that facilitated rapid conversion to warships should the need arise. Arctic, built at Brown Shipyard and designed by George Steers, was the third of the four ships to be launched, following Atlantic and Pacific, and was marginally the largest of the four. She was 284 feet in length, and measured at 2,856 tonnage by the U.S. Custom House measurement that was then in use. Her two side-lever steam engines, which accounted for $250,000 of the total construction cost of $700,000, were built and fitted by Stillman, Allen and Company. Each generated 1,000 horsepower, turning the 35.5-foot paddle wheels at 16 revolutions a minute at full speed. Like her sister ships, Arctic was built to a luxurious standard. A contemporary description refers to her furnishings and fittings as giving an air of almost oriental magnificence. The ladies' saloon was described as a gorgeous yet beautiful apartment, brilliant with light presenting as cheerful a scene as the heart could crave. Arctic was launched on January the 28th of 1850 from Brown's Yard on New York's East River, before a large crowd. According to a press account, she was the most stupendous vessel ever constructed in the United States, or the world, since the patriarchal days of Noah. The New York Herald's reporter described the crowd's reaction as the ship slid into the water. Men waved their hats, ladies their handkerchiefs, in admiration of the glad event. The thousands who witnessed her launch stood for nearly half an hour contemplating the splendid vessel. Under her captain, James F. Luce, Arctic, now fully fitted out, underwent her sea trials during October 18th to the 19th of 1850. In preparation for entering regular transatlantic service on October 26th. That first voyage to Liverpool passed without incident. In the years that followed, Arctic established a reputation as one of the fastest of ocean liners, regularly completing the transatlantic crossing in 10 days and sometimes less. In February of 1852, she reached Liverpool in 9 days, 17 hours, which is considered an exceptional time for a winter crossing. She became the most celebrated of the Collins Line ships and was known as the Clipper of the Sea. On November 23rd of 1953, Arctic ran aground on the Burbo Bank in Liverpool Bay whilst on a voyage from New York to Liverpool. She was refloated and taken into Liverpool. On May 18th, 1854, Arctic struck the Blue Rock off the coast of the Salty Islands, County Wexford, whilst on a voyage from Liverpool to New York City. She was refloated and put back to Liverpool. In July 1854, Arctic's engines were adapted in the hopes of reducing the heavy fuel costs that were helping to undermine the ship's profitability. The Baltimore Sun reported that the modifications were an invention of the Baltimore firm Weathered Brothers, and if successful would reduce fuel costs by half. Powerful engines fitted to Arctic and her sisters strained their wooden hulls, and the line incurred large expenses in maintaining the actual vessels. Here is the Arctic at the time of her sinking. On September 27, 1854, while en route to New York from Liverpool, the Arctic collided with SS Vesta, a much smaller fishing vessel, 50 miles off the coast of Newfoundland. And yes, this up here was actually her sinking. There were roughly 400 people on board, approximately 250 passengers and 150 crew. Captain Luce's first thought was to give assistance to the stricken fishing boat, which appeared in danger of sinking, but when he was told his own ship was holed beneath the waterline, he decided to make for the nearest land. As attempts to plug the leaks failed, Arctic's hull steadily filled with seawater, and the boiler fires were extinguished by this water. And because of this, the engine slowed and stopped while she was still far from land. In accordance with the maritime regulations then in force, Arctic carried 6 lifeboats, the total capacity of which was around 180 people. Captain Luce ordered these launched, but a breakdown in discipline among the crew meant that most places in the boats were taken by members of the crew or by the more able-bodied passengers, one of which was the French ambassador, the Duc de Gramont, who was observed jumping from the ship into one of the last lifeboats. The rest were left with makeshift rafts or were unable to leave the ship and went down with her when she sank, 4 hours after the collision. Captain Luce himself, unlike his crew, went down with the ship, although he survived. Meanwhile, a vessel which appeared to sustain mortal damage was saved from sinking by her watertight bulkheads and was able to gain the harbor at St. John's, Newfoundland. 2 of the 6 lifeboats that left Arctic safely reached the Newfoundland shore, and another was picked by a passing steamer which also rescued a few survivors from improvised rafts. Among these was Captain Luce, who regained the surface after initially going down with the ship. He was rescued after clinging to the wreckage of the paddle wheel box for 2 days, and by paddle wheel box they mean this cover right here. The other 3 boats disappeared without trace. In all, more than 300 people died. The 85 survivors included 61 of the crew and 24 male passengers. All the women and children on board perished. Among those lost were the wife of Edward Collins and 2 of his children. Other victims included several members of the Brown family, whose Brown brothers had helped to finance the Collins line. Also lost was Frederick Catherwood, who was the English architect and painter whose name was mysteriously left off the official casualty list for weeks, until a concerted effort by his friends and colleagues resulted in a belated inclusion by the authorities and newspapers. In addition to the tragic loss of human life, a rare copy of William Shakespeare's first folio that New York lawyer and Shakespeare collector Alden W. Griswold had purchased the ship from Liverpool was lost. Among the lost as well were Mahlon Day, prominent New York publisher of children's books and business publications, with his wife and daughter. The limited telegraph communications at the time meant that news of the Arctic's loss did not reach New York until 2 weeks after her sinking. As the full story emerged, initial public sorrow at the ship's loss turned to condemnation of the perceived cowardice of the crew and their failure of duty towards their passengers. Although some newspapers demanded an inquiry into the disaster, none was held, and no one was called to account for their actions. Proposals that lifeboat capacity on passenger-carrying vessels should be increased to provide a place for every person on board was not acted on. Captain Luce, who was generally exonerated from blame by the public, retired from the sea, and some of the surviving crew chose not to return to the United States. The Collins line continued its transatlantic service until further maritime losses and insolvency led to its closure in 1858. James Brown, president of both Brown Brothers Bank and the Collins line, erected a grand monument in Greenwood Cemetery, Brooklyn, New York, to the 6 members of this family lost in the Arctic disaster. It incorporates a sculpture of the ship, half submerged by the waves. The names of those who died are inscribed in the pedestal. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the story of the SS Arctic. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.